Okay, and the first tool that we're going to try out is Ollama, and it's available at ollama.com. Now again, this one is free, so it doesn't cost a dime. Just go to ollama.com and download it. One of the cool things about Ollama is it's available in Mac, Linux, or Windows. So it doesn't matter what you're using. Works great in all of them. I've actually run Ollama extensively in all of these. It runs great. I'd say Linux is probably my favorite place for it. However, it runs great in all of them. So you just click on download. You'll get a file. You put it in your downloads. And I already have it installed, but we'll just run it anyway, just so you can see what it looks like. It's very, very much the same as it is in Windows and Linux. So I can just take Ollama, drag it over to my applications, replace. Oh, can't do it because Ollama's in use. So I'll quit Ollama, take this over, drag it over to my applications, replace, and we're good to go. Now I go over here to my Launchpad. There's Ollama. And what it's going to do is it's going to start up, and we say, yes, we want to open it. And then it's going to live up here and in your taskbars. Same thing with Windows. So when you install it in Windows, it's going to run. It's going to put a little icon up there. That doesn't mean it's taking up any power or anything like that or dragging anything down. It just kind of sits there until you do something with it. And with Ollama, you primarily interact with it from the prompt by typing in Ollama. So open up a terminal, and this is for Windows, Mac, or Linux. Just open up a terminal and type in Ollama, and it will show you all of the different commands that you have. So you can start up an Ollama server. That's one way of doing it if you want to write software against it. That's a little bit more complicated for this course, so I'm going to show you here. We'll type in Ollama list, and we have several different models. Now let me explain what a model is. A model is where you get your information from when you're doing a chat. So if we take this here and say, we'll select Quen, say Ollama run Quen. What it'll do is it'll load up that model, and then the chat opens up instantly. So here we can say, tell me a funny joke about content creation. And this chat model will interact back and forth just like with ChatGPT or other ones that you might be familiar with. Now you can see this one's taken a little while because it's a larger model, and we'll talk about that too. Why did the content creator break up with the calendar? Because he found out she was all dates and no events. Yeah, none of these jokes are ever funny. Now, again, we'll talk about models. So if you go over here to ollama.com and click on models, you can see there are a ton of these you can download. Now, when you go to ChatGPT, there is a selection for different models you can use. There's ChatGPT 4.0, there's a mini model, etc. This is very similar. This is where the data comes from. This is what you're actually chatting with. And a lot of these models are open source models that people have built for specific purposes. So we look at Quen 2.5 Quoter. That's the one that I just loaded up. This is a code-specific Quen model. So that's if you want it to help you write code for something. It's really good at that. It's good at fixing code, things like that. Llama 3.2 Vision is one where you can send it images and it'll analyze images for you. Llama 3.2 and 3.1, these are images that were released by Meta, which is a company that owns Facebook. And these are general purpose models. So you can use these for question and answers. You can use it for content generation, which of course is what this whole community is about. You can use it for a variety of different things. And then they have these different fine-tuned models. And each of these are just kind of their own little flavor that somebody has put together to build something. Now, one thing I will talk about is model size. This is very important. So we can see here it says Meta's Llama 3.2 goes small with 1 billion and 3 billion models. Now, what does 1B and 3B mean? This is the size of the parameters. And the way that I generally explain it in my AI courses is think of parameters as a library. So you have a library with 1 billion books and 3 billion books. So a library with 1 billion books realistically would have a ton of information, right? But it would probably be light skimmed information on certain subjects, deep on other subjects, etc. If you go to a library with 3 billion books, 3 billion books, you're going to find deeper dives into each of those subjects. So if we go up to 70 billion, 14 billion parameters for things, you find a lot more depth in the information that you get. And so I think the library book analogy is probably the best one I can think of, because you can get by with 1 billion models, you can get plenty of good information. But if you start going into 70 billion parameter models, you'll get a lot more information, and it dives deeper into particular subjects. So why don't we just run 70 billion parameter models all day long? Well, because those parameters, there's two constraints on that. With a 70 billion parameter model, for instance, you need more horsepower as far as your processing goes. You need a bigger video card, you need a faster computer, and you need more hard drive space. Now, if I remember correctly, I have quite a few models here, and you can actually take a look at it. So I have the Llama 3.2 1 billion parameter model. It's taking up 1.3 gigabytes on my hard drive, which is not too bad. It's very fast. Now, if we look here, I have the Llama 3.1 405 billion parameter model, and I actually could not get this model to run on my computer, so I'm going to remove it. But I was trying really hard to get it to run, and it's just too much, requires too much power, and as you can see, it takes up 228 gigabytes on my hard drive. So remember earlier in the last video I said, the faster the better, and you want more memory and more hard drive space. This is why. The more of these models you download, the more they take up. I have been able to get the 70 billion parameter model running 70 times as much information as the 1 billion parameter, theoretically, and it takes up 39 gigabytes on my hard drive. So there's your trade-off, And what I'm going to do right now is just show you the difference in speed between 1 billion and 70 billion parameter models. And mind you, I'm running this on a Mac Studio with an M2 Ultra, so this is a really fast machine. Because I do this stuff every day and I need that kind of power. I also have a PC with an RTX 4090 in it, which is one of the biggest video cards you can get in a PC, because I do so much AI stuff all the time. You don't necessarily need that. And I'll show you why. So we can take this 70 billion parameter model and we're going to run it. And there we go. It's loaded up and ready to go. And I'll say, write an article about how to create a viral YouTube video. So this is something we might want to know about, right? And you can see it's going pretty fast, but it's not like instant lightning fast. And chances are, unless you have a giant M2 Ultra or a 4090, it's going to be slower for the 70 billion parameter model. But look at the detail we're getting from this article, for instance. We can see that we're getting a lot of information. We're getting tips for creating a viral YouTube video. And it just kind of goes on, and I can copy this and rework it into some kind of article to help people, right? And we'll let this thing finish. And it's not super slow, but it's not super fast either. And you can see that it's creating a ton of great information. So another thing to note is when we're talking about billion parameters, you might be thinking, okay, well, why don't I just download ChatGPT to my computer and I'll just run these models and then I don't need ChatGPT anymore? That's not necessarily true, because of the depth of information from these models. Now, we talked about how we have a 1 billion parameter model, 70 billion parameter model. ChatGPT, for instance, is running in the trillions of parameters. So way, way more information. However, you can get by with these types of models really well. As you can see, we have a pretty good article here. It's pretty in-depth, covers a lot of things. We'll say buy, Ollama list. Now let's go to the 1 billion parameter model. Let's say Ollama run. Oops, I accidentally hit the find. There we go. Ollama run. Now we're going to run a 1 billion parameter model, and we'll run the exact same command. Write an article about how to create a viral YouTube video. You can see this one is far faster and still creates a pretty good article. There's still a lot here. So what you're going to do when you're running things is you're going to take small parameter models, like try starting with 1 billion parameter model, work your way up to as high as you can go. 70 in my case is as high as I can go. And do some tests, do some A/B tests, generate something with the 1 billion parameter model, copy it, save it to a text file, generate something with a 70 billion, and kind of see how much you need that extra power. Now you might find for your uses, like I have to have 70 billion for everything. The 1 billion just produces junk. You may find just the opposite, where you're like, the 1 billion is producing what I want perfectly fine. And that's great. So you can run a 1 billion parameter model on a lot of different computers. You can have an older, more ancient laptop somewhere that's probably going to run a 1 billion parameter model pretty well. 70 billion, it may not run at all. So that's what I was hoping to convey here with model sizes, is basically the size of your library and the amount of power and hard drive space. You need to balance between those two and kind of figure it out. We're going to talk about that a lot in this community and a lot in these courses. But what you should know about Ollama is that it has a ton of models available with different sizes. Here's a Quen model with a 0.5 billion parameter model. So that is really, really small. Or you can go up to 72 billion parameter model for this, depending on kind of what you're getting out of each one. And that's all you do is you go to ollama.com, click on library or models, it opens up your library, and you can experiment with these things all the time. Each of these models are fine-tuned and they kind of compete with each other. We've got general purpose, like I said, we've got a coder model, we've got a vision model, we got some general purpose models. We have models from all these different makers. Lava is a cool one that combines a vision encoder and vicuna, so you can do a lot of visual understanding. So you can use this to read text from images, things like that. You can use it to analyze images. There's CodeLlama, very specific to coding. And the list just goes on and on. Notice here we have Llama 2 uncensored. So sometimes you might want to generate things that aren't exactly G-rated, right? Like erotica literature, things like that, maybe dirty jokes, something like that. You can use this Llama 2 uncensored, and it won't censor you nearly as much. So it'll output a little bit more adult type information. And I'm not judging, nothing wrong with that. But a lot of these models, you'll notice they'll say, as a large language model, I can't generate dirty jokes for you or whatever. Llama 2 uncensored will do it for you. And then we have bilingual models. The list goes on and on. All of these are free. So you can just download them and run them. And the most common interface for this, unfortunately, is text, but you can copy this text. If you're a programmer or you want to become a programmer, you can write a little bit of Python and automate the heck out of this and build chat models. And you can even build your own little chat type interface that you could put on your website. So that is something good to mention. That's not really the scope of this particular course, but if you're a programmer, I'm going to show you a bunch of cool stuff you can do with Ollama also, because it's very good for programming. That's primarily who I think uses Ollama, are programmers who want to build things for different models. They want to build their own AI stuff. But you as a content developer can absolutely use it like I just did. And all of the things that we talk about in this course, we talk about using AI to refine your work, to build outlines for you, to do stuff like that. You can do all of that with Ollama on your own machine perfectly fine. So in the next video, I'll show you a little bit about fine-tuning Ollama and what that means.